Well, I mean, speaking of Stephen Harper not voting, one of the big issues on the table right now is the Fair Elections Act. Could you briefly explain that to our viewers, what that is, what that act entails?
Well, I think we have huge concerns with the Fair Elections Act. As you know, it's been named the Unfair Elections Act, or the Rigging Elections Act, or the Assault on Democracy Act. That there are many people very, very worried. I think we start with the process, that no one was consulted about what they need, and it's very, very wrong unless you've got an all-party consensus and listening to the experts to actually create a bill that can dramatically change the way we vote and who votes in Canada. So the fact that Elections Canada wasn't consulted, the Director of Public Prosecution, who's going to get a whole bunch of new responsibilities with this act, the fact that so many of the real, whether it's the provincial heads of elections, like Neufeld in British Columbia had written a report that the minister seems to be misrepresenting, that members of Parliament weren't really asked as to what they'd seen and what they'd like to see in this bill. So, I think taking the powers away from Elections Canada to investigate complaints, taking the powers away from Elections Canada to actually promote voting with the student vote or the civics campaigns, or with being able to just put ads out there that say, pretty well along the lines of, we don't care who you vote for, but please get out and vote, in order to make our democracy really more representative of the people of Canada. So it's a worry, not only what's in the bill, but how they got there without talking to anybody who knows about it. And so when you have that, people saying that the bill actually tilts the playing field in favor of one party, the Conservative Party, that I think Canadians should be very concerned. And I think, things like, that it doesn't count in your budget, the calls you make to former donors. This is very good for older parties. It's not good for newer parties who might have a smaller group of people to call. And when you look at Canada versus the United States, one of the things that we really have done well is to put a limit on how much you can spend in an election, so that in here in St. Paul's I can only spend about $80,000, about $1 per elector. That if you think of the millions and millions of dollars that Americans spend in elections, and that a member of Congress would spend almost half of every week fundraising, we've done some really good things here. But if this bill allows that to just sneak up, like happened with the In-N-Out scandal, if it means that in some ways you're allowing what happened in the In-N-Out scandal in this new bill, it's not surprising that we're all worried, and I guess some of us are pretty concerned that we wish that people were out in the streets protesting.
Well, I mean, there have been people guessing that this bill might be seeking to placate some of the fears of the Conservative Party, with perhaps them fearing that the Liberals and Justin Trudeau have or are building up a very strong youth support. Is that something that they're trying to perhaps diminish or decrease with this bill?
Well, I mean, I'm always, I always have a tough time ascribing sort of motivation, but it does seem like that, you're right. And I think that when you hear the testimony from the three groups for whom vouching, or for whom that, they keep talking about all the possible kinds of ID that are possible, but for seniors, for Indigenous population, and for youth, those, a lot of those people do not have a piece of ID with their address on it. If people go away to university, they'll have a student card, but it doesn't have their address. If people live on reserve. It might be that, again, that there's not a piece of ID, their status card does not have their address on it. If you think of seniors in a seniors residence that or in some of these situations without a driver's license